Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this public consultation webinar on the Hotel Carbon Measurement Initiative 3.0 and the Hotel Water Measurement Initiative 2.0 consultation drafts. We'll keep this webinar concise and practical. Our aim today is to explain what these methodologies are, why the updates matter, and how you can participate in the consultation. But firstly, for those that don't know, the World Sustainable Hospitality Alliance is a movement, a vibrant community of industry leaders pioneering a prosperous future where hospitality uplifts people, honours our planet, and enriches communities. By uniting and empowering companies, we create pathways to net positive hospitality, ensuring that destinations thrive for generations. Together, we transform vision into action, driving collaboration and innovation because every role matters in our shared journey towards a sustainable tomorrow. The Hotel Carbon Measurement Initiative and Hotel Water Measurement Initiative have been long-standing and widely used tools for the hospitality sector. HCMI was first launched in 2012 and has since been adopted by over 30,000 hotels worldwide to calculate and report greenhouse gas emissions in a more consistent and comparable way. The Hotel Water Measurement Initiative, HWMI, was first published in 2016 and provides a consistent methodology for measuring and reporting water withdrawal. This consultation marks an important next step. For the first time, these long-standing tools are being formalised into methodology standards through the Alliance's standards governance process. That matters because expectations around sustainability data are changing. Hotels and their partners are increasingly being asked not only for more data, but for data that is more comparable, more decision useful, and better prepared for scrutiny. Investors, lenders, travel buyers, and reporting frameworks are all contributing to that shift. So it is not simply a rebranding exercise. It is a methodological and governance step forward. The aim is to provide clearer scope boundaries, definitions, data requirements, calculation rules, and a structured review cycle. In turn, that is intended to strengthen consistency, usability, and confidence in the reported data, while improving compatibility with the Alliance's universal sustainability KPIs and net positive pathway. It is also important to be clear about what these standards do not do and do. HCMI and HWMI are measurement and reporting methodologies. They help translate hotel operational data into more consistent and comparable outputs across properties and portfolios. They do not, in themselves, assess performance or substantiate claims such as net positive, net zero, or carbon neutral. At the same time, these updates are designed to improve audit readiness and to lay the groundwork for future external assurance. The Alliance is developing a complementary assurance and claim system that will define the requirements for independent verification of HCMI and HWMI results, the conditions under which specific sustainability claims may be made, and the associated oversight mechanisms. Until that system is published and effective, all HCMI and HWMI results should be treated as self-reported and unassured. I also want to make one point absolutely clear. The Hotel Carbon Measurement Initiative and the Hotel Water Measurement Initiative are not becoming paid standards. Upon final release, both standards will remain free and accessible to all hotels, regardless of experience, location, or size. And just as importantly, this consultation is open to all stakeholders. We welcome input from different regions, different operating contexts, and different parts of the hospitality value chain and its wider ecosystem. If you are affected by how these methodologies are used, or if you have expertise relevant to their implementation, your perspective is welcome. The breadth of participation matters. For a global methodology standard to be practical and credible, it needs to be informed by perspectives from different markets, different business models, and different levels of technical maturity. So we encourage you not only to review the drafts yourselves, but also to share them internally with colleagues and teams who will ultimately use, interpret, and implement or rely on these methodologies in practice. Today's public consultation is the main opportunity for stakeholders to shape the final requirements before we go to publication. Let me now briefly set the scene before our technical partner, Retech, takes over and covers their technical details. I'll focus on three questions. What are HCMI and HWMI? Why are they being updated? And how do they connect to the Alliance's wider architecture? At their core, the Hotel Carbon Measurement Initiative and the Hotel Water Measurement Initiative are methodologies for measurement and reporting. HCMI enables hotels to measure and report property-level greenhouse gas emissions in a more consistent and comparable way. HWMI does the same for property-level water withdrawal. They are designed to help create a common basis for reporting across properties and portfolios. As mentioned earlier, HCMI was first launched in 2012 and has since been adopted by over 30,000 hotels. HWMI was first published in 2016 and an update was published again in June 2020. So when we talk about these updates, we are talking about strengthening methodologies that are already important to the sector. So why are they being updated now? Well, there are four main reasons. First, these consultation drafts propose the transition of HCMI and HWMI from guidance tools into formal global methodology standards. That means clearer scope, boundaries, definitions, data requirements, calculation rules, and version control under a structured review cycle. Second, the update is intended to strengthen consistency, usability, and confidence in the reported data. Third, the drafts strengthen alignment with the GHG protocol in the case of HCMI and improve audit readiness in both standards to support future assurance arrangements. Until the Alliance's assurance system is published and effective, results should still be treated as self-reported and unassured. And fourth, HCMI and HWMI support the Alliance's universal sustainability KPIs and the net positive hospitality pathway by translating hotel operational data into more consistent and comparable outputs across properties and portfolios. This slide shows where HCMI and HWMI sit within the wider WSHA architecture. At the broadest level, the pathway to net positive hospitality brings together people, planet, place, and prosperity with governance and core topics across the broader framework. Within that wider architecture, the universal sustainability KPIs define more standardized reporting outputs. HCMI and HWMI provide the underlying methodology for carbon, water measurements at the property level, helping create comparable outputs across properties and portfolios. And for participating hotels, those KPI outputs can also support wider data uses such as benchmarking, reporting, and progress tracking through WSHA's broader data architecture, including Vera FY. These drafts have not been developed in isolation. They have been developed by the Alliance with tech partner Retech advisors through WSHA's standards governance process and informed by working groups made up of members of the Alliance and other hotel groups and an industry advisory group. Today's public consultation is the main opportunity for a wider group of stakeholders to help shape the requirements before global release. That is why your input at this stage is so important. These methodologies are designed first and foremost for hotels, operators, brands, owners, and asset managers that need consistent property level and portfolio measurement and reporting. They are also relevant to investors, travel buyers, auditors, consultants, industry associations, and others who rely on more comparable and decision-useful data. With that overview, I'd now like to hand over to Christian Bakken from Retech Advisors, who will walk us through the key updates in the HCMI 3.0 version and the HWMI 2.0 version. Christian, over to you.
Let's dig into some more of the details about this. HCMI and HWMI, before going farther into the updates, continue to be useful in the same core way they have been in the past. They are, at their heart, a methodology to calculate a hotel's carbon footprint per occupied room night or per area of meeting space for HCMI, or water withdrawals, also for occupied room night or per area of meeting space. There are also additional output metrics and the ability to use the carbon data and water data here to create a more comprehensive portrayal of emissions and water usage at a property. The key updates are looking at items such as expansion of scope, greater consistency in calculation, updates to output denominators, and making the data in HCMI ready for audits and higher quality data collection to start off with. By looking at the first and most likely the most impactful addition to HCMI is expanded Scope 3 coverage. I'll spend the most time here out of the updates, and I imagine this will be the area that receives the most attention during the consultation period. We decided to expand HCMI 3.0, but with Scope 3 categories, but focusing on material Scope 3 categories at a hotel level. We understand that there's a large universe of Scope 3 categories that are relevant to hotels, but these ones that we believe are the most impactful from an emissions perspective, as well as the ones that are closest to being able to be measured at a hotel level. Prime among these is purchase goods and services. This is focused on only 5 material fields to start off with. Laundry, which has traditionally been included in HCMI, food and beverage, housekeeping, landscaping, and repairs and maintenance. These are all categories that may have different relevance and scale for different hotels, but we believe across the board these are relevant at almost all hotels in some way or another. The core calculation methodology in this update is spend-based. This is based on our discussions with the working groups who identified the spend-based data as the most attainable at the current time. But there are options for hotels to go more in depth by using product-based or supplier-based emission factors. Waste is added in as well with calculations based off of the hotel waste management methodology. Waste quantity and treatment options should be entered, and then emissions will be calculated from there. If data is available, the calculations are relatively straightforward, and we believe this is an important way to integrate the different sustainability impacts of a hotel into one methodology. The last Scope 3 category is fuel and energy-related activities. These reflect transmission losses and upstream energy-related emissions. They are an add-on to existing energy emissions calculations, but require no additional inputs as long as the energy consumption values are provided for Scope 2 and Scope 1. There is a transition period, as noted in the bottom here, for adding Scope 3 to metrics. WSHA will continue to work throughout this transition period to identify the best opportunities for data collection, calculation, and estimating these Scope 3 data points where they are not currently collected or measured at the hotel level or even at the corporate level. There are also a few updates to existing calculation methodologies within HCMI. Refrigerants and mobile fuels are the key changes here. Refrigerants are now mandatory as a potentially material Scope 1 emission source. We understand that regulatory environments are now putting more scrutiny on Scope 1 emission sources, and so the option to exclude refrigerants or have only a 1% addition is not in line with best available research on the impact of refrigerants at a hotel property. However, there are estimation options based on user questions within the HCMI tools. Mobile fuels are also switched slightly. We're looking at, if you go back to the slide before, an option for mileage-based calculations if that data is available instead of actual fuel quantities. Instead of having just a 1% increase, it is required to put in actual mobile fuel data if that's used for a hotel property, because 1% is not based off of auditable and assurable sources. It is, however, not required if no mobile fuels are used on site. We've also updated the output denominators to expand HCMI from purely a procurement-focused tool that is calculating per room night metrics to one that is useful for internal goal setting and measurement, as well as reporting to different standards worldwide. So while the core metrics remain intensity per occupied room night and per meeting space, area per hour, you can also calculate absolute emissions, intensity per guest night, and intensity as an area-based measurement. For 2025, these will continue to be based on Scope 1 and Scope 2 data only, as in HCMI version 2.0. However, when shifting into reporting year 2026, so calculations in 2027 and beyond, Scope 3 will be a mandatory included item for all of these metrics if reported externally. And a key, but perhaps under the radar update in the actual methodology documentation is expanding the data requirements necessary for external verification. WSHA is still developing an external verification process with more details to come in the near future. However, the goal for HCMI 3.0 is that for hotels or hotel groups that wish to verify their data, ensure data quality and consistency, they will have the materials available to do that. There are also additional tools built in to the HCMI tools that will check for outliers, that will benchmark hotel results against relevant peer properties, and as a result, allow better internal comparison even before you get to the external verification stage. So that was HCMI. Let's switch now to talking about the HWMI updates, many of which are on a similar theme. We are including some new water sources or relabeling others to be clear where they're drawing from. We're updating how data is input and the type of data that can be included in HWMI. There's a new water scarcity metric that is part of this, and then as similar as I just mentioned for HCMI, enhanced data quality and preparation for external verification and audits. You can see in this slide the list of water sources that are included in HWMI 2.0. Most of these were included in the last version of HWMI. You'll see a new category for other water, more ability to enter ground and surface water that is tracked, and then we continue to have estimation options for outsourced laundry as well as unmetered irrigation and plumbing water. Overall, this should show the entirety of water usage within a hotel property and avoid any situations where water usage is collected but unable to be input within HWMI. These inputs are updated in a few other ways as well. First off is noting the quantity of water recycled or reused on site can now be entered. This is an optional entry, and it's not something that will feed into the HWMI intensity output metrics. However, we understand that for many hotels, measuring recycled water is important, and it's a key measurement of how much water is used, even if it's not the same as the water withdrawn from the environment, which is the core of the HWMI metric. We've also shifted from encouraging a peer area-based split of water data at a whole building level to sub-meter data where possible. We understand that not all hotels will have sub-meter data, but where it is used, we understand that this will be much better quality data that can specifically highlight portions of the hotel that have higher or lower water usage intensity. And lastly, we know that some hotels will do laundry on-site for third parties, and as a result, increase their water, bills and consumption. There is now an option for hotels to separate out laundry done on-site for third parties, as well as in other amenities that are public-facing, from the hotel-specific intensity metrics, if appropriate documentation is retained. There's also a new water scarcity calculation. Water scarcity is not, at the current stage, linked directly to the intensity metrics. However, we understand that this is a key driver of water impact on the local environment. And so by measuring water scarcity, reviewers can determine whether a hotel's withdrawals are more or less than average, and more impactful in the local environment. This is based on WRI's Aqueduct tool, using a baseline measurement, annual, and the water stress measurement. So the calculation is generally straightforward, but it can show from low to very high the amount of water stress within a hotel's local environment. And then lastly, again, we are expanding the data quality and documentation requirements to set this up for either stronger internal review or external verification, based on noting the estimated share of water data in the HCMI calculations, language and data requirements that are updated to align with verification standards and recommendations for viewing outlier data and benchmarking property-specific data. So these are the updates that are made for HCMI and HWMI at a more technical level. Certainly, the documentation will go more in depth into how these new categories are calculated and displayed. But for now, I'll turn it over to Coco to talk through the practical aspects of the consultation.
Thank you very much, Christian. And for this final section, I will briefly explain how to participate in the public consultation and where to find the materials and what happens after feedback is submitted. First, the public consultation is open until May 15th, 2026. The Alliance consultation page is the main place to access the consultation material for HCMI 3.0 and HWMI 2.0, including the draft standards, supporting materials, and the survey links. Just as importantly, this consultation is open to all stakeholders. We welcome input from different regions, different operation contexts, and wider ecosystem, including but not limited to hotels, owners, operators, investors, travel buyers, auditors, consultants, NGOs, academics, and industry associations. Second, formal feedback should be submitted through the relevant online survey form. There are separate surveys for HCMI 3.0 and HWMI 2.0, and you are welcome to respond to one or both, depending on your area of interest or expertise. We encourage everyone to review the relevant standard draft before completing the survey. We also encourage broad participation within organizations, so multiple submissions from the same organizations are also very welcomed. If you have questions or need clarification, the frequently asked questions session will be a good place to start with. And you can also contact us directly through the email list here. Finally, a brief word on what happens after the consultation closes. After May 15, 2026, the Alliance will review and analyze all feedback received. We will then publish a summary of comments together with explanation on how material issues were considered and continue to finalize process through the relevant governance bodies. Individual responses will not be attributed to specific respondent or organizations, and comment may be redacted when necessary to protect personal data or confidential information. The final publication date will be then communicated on our official website. So please review the draft standards, share them with relevant colleagues in your organizations, and submit your feedback before May 15th, 2026. And if you still have any question, please feel free to contact us directly. Thank you very much. Back to you, Peter.
Well, now you've heard all about the consultation process for the Hotel Carbon Measurement Initiative and Hotel Water Measurement Initiative. Thank you very much for listening to this update, and we look forward to receiving your inputs. Thank you all.